picture which I understand inspired the 100 Years Project. The picture was taken at the Herbert Smith's centenary dinner in 1982, at which point I'd been a partner for a couple of years and I was the only woman partner. And the senior partner at the time beckoned me forward when this photograph was being taken and said, "Come and stand by me, my dear." So I did. I come from a family of lawyers, so my father and my grandfather were both solicitors in the North East. So I started off with the intention of being a lawyer in the family tradition, I suppose, and I was an only child, so doing it as a girl was no great problem. My school was very academic, very encouraging of my pursuing that. I was at Oxford 66 to 69 and I had a whale of a time. I can't pretend I worked very hard. I got a second, but not through a great deal of endeavour, I have to say. And I did an awful lot of growing up, and it was a wonderful experience. Oxford had an incredibly traditional law course, probably one of the most old-fashioned of its time. And I found myself in my first term studying the Roman law of marriage, constitutional law, and criminal law, with a huge emphasis on the difference between first and second degree murder, a concept that the House of Lords abolished at the end of term and before the exam. So it wasn't enthusing particularly, and I found it as a pure academic subject, very dry, not very satisfying, and as soon as I began to practice at Herbert Smith, it came alive. When I arrived at the firm, I discovered that they'd had one woman trainee. They weren't keeping her on, and obviously they needed a token woman with a reasonably respectable background. I also was asked, some of those now totally politically incorrect questions like, what does your father do? And I subsequently discovered that when I answered the then senior partner, my father was a lawyer in Newcastle. That was music to his ears because he was quite soft-hearted and he liked to have something to feel that anybody who didn't quite make it at Herbert Smith would have a job. So the children of provincial solicitors were almost guaranteed to have a partnership in the family firm if they wanted it. So he felt that they were, quite a good category of people to take on, to train, because if they did well, they would certainly want to stay in the city, and if they didn't do well, he wouldn't feel too bad about them going off back to their family firms. I was the only female trainee out of, I think there would have been 12 of us at the time. So obviously you got noticed. And that, I think, is something which obviously is different from today, because today young lawyers are at least 50% women in any group, and I don't think they stand out or get noticed, whereas from the moment I was in the firm, people knew who I was. I felt all the way through my career that there were very, very few occasions when people misunderstood that I was there to give legal advice. I can remember going to a meeting once where the host suggested I poured the tea, and I declined politely. For myself, I think there was never any question. I really enjoyed the job. I wanted to continue doing it, and I was also the greater breadwinner. So all those factors suggested I was going to work come what may in all probability, so I might as well do the job I really enjoyed, which paid very well. So I went back to work after each of my children quite cheerfully. We engaged a nanny, and that worked very well. My finance division colleagues used to call us the basket weavers because we actually looked at the law. We were very intellectual. But I think competition law, the group had the last laugh as we developed into one of the most profitable bits of the firm. And I think that was an opportunity which I got to a large extent because it wasn't recognised as a potential growth area. If it had, it would have had big beasts all over it. I've not had one of these sort of spectacular careers that ends up with getting a peerage or a damehood. I've been a steady worker. I've done the, if you like, the full city career from beginning to end, starting as a trainee and ending up as a partner, and now I work as a consultant. And in that, I think I offer people the opportunity to see that you can live through that and be a woman and be sane and have a family. And I hope that offers something to women who are doubting whether they can do it or not.